America's public lands and wild places are one of its greatest treasures, but like any treasure, they need to be protected. For the past 50 years, the most important tool conservationists have had in protecting the environment is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA for short. But this bedrock environmental law is being threatened, and it's critical that we act now to save it.
We've seen the government working to try and shortchange the public and short-circuit environmental review and ignore science that might not be convenient or conducive to the decision that they want to reach.
At its core, NEPA mandates all federal agencies to take a hard look at the environmental consequences of their decision-making before authorizing any major projects on federal lands. However, the Trump administration's Council on Environmental Quality is proposing a rewrite to the rule book that implements NEPA, effectively gutting the statute and jeopardizing the future of America's public lands and waters.
They're proposing to severely curtail public participation in federal decision-making. Like a lot of people who work in this field, my path to becoming an environmentalist or a professional conservationist was through outdoor recreation.
NEPA is an essential pathway for the outdoor recreation community to have our voices heard. Climbers, skiers, backpackers, boaters, and bikers, and anyone else who spends time in the wild areas understands the beauty and fragility of these places. According to a study by the U.S. Geological Survey, 25% of America's greenhouse gas emissions come from its public lands. NEPA has been used successfully by conservation groups to stop drilling and fracking on thousands of acres across the West by using the cumulative effects analysis.
A very concerning part of what the Council on Environmental Quality is proposing is that they're saying that indirect and cumulative effects would no longer be considered in these environmental analyses, and that's basically code for climate change. We can't solve the climate crisis if we refuse to acknowledge it or think about ways to fix it.
Not only will the rewrite remove the cumulative effects analysis, but it will also effectively disable public comment periods, prohibiting the public from having a say in oil and gas development.
They're opening the door for decision makers to arbitrarily ignore the public's comments by saying, these aren't technical enough, these aren't detailed enough. Unless you're a paid professional who writes comment letters for a living, you don't have the time or expertise to write the type of letter that might pass muster under these new regulations.
Equally concerning, the rewrite would allow corporations to conduct their own environmental analysis, which makes these critical studies vulnerable to bias.
Under these proposed regulations, it would allow industry, mining, logging, whatever, to do their own environmental analysis, which clearly will result in an outcome that is biased towards industry. When you're considering the effects of your own proposal and you have a vested interest in getting that proposal through, that's no longer a neutral, balanced approach to considering these issues. This is incredibly important and is going to affect every aspect of American life when it comes to our environment, not just when we're out in the mountains, climbing, but also the air that we breathe in our communities and how federal highway projects are planned, or whether a wetland in your neighborhood park is turned into a housing development. But we want to get Congress to pay attention, and the only way they're going to do that is if they hear from their constituents. I think being outside and recreating outside, it's an opportunity to get away from the ever-present technology and demands of modern life. Also just to move at a slower pace, move at the pace of the natural world and hear birds and have silence.
Our connection to place and our shared sense of responsibility for protecting America's public lands and waters must be taken seriously at this moment. It is not too late for you to take action.
Reach out to your representatives in Congress right now and demand that they take action to protect the Environmental Policy Act.
Thank you for your support.